I'm an old man now, and my hands shake too much to split firewood like they used to. But I still remember the winter of '78, the winter they sold people in the back of Harlow's livery, where the law couldn't see through the snowdrifts. The chains didn't make noise anymore. Metal had frozen to her skin. When they yanked her forward onto that platform, I saw her wince, but not cry out. She'd learned not to make noise. Her feet were black with frostbite, bare on the frozen boards. 17, they said, though her eyes looked 100 years old. The auctioneer grinned, breath fogging in the lamplight. Starting bid, $5. Nobody spoke. A man in front spat in the dirt. Ain't worth a single dime. Then I saw it. That crescent scar on her wrist. The one I'd wrapped 8 years before, when she was just a little girl hiding behind her father's leg, before the mine took him, before everything burned. I raised my hand. $30. Heads turned. And I knew right then, I just bought myself a war that wouldn't end until spring. The sound of chains, the crack of a whip, then silence. January 1878. 3 weeks after the worst blizzard in territorial history buried Broken Ridge under 8 feet of snow. I hadn't been to town in 6 weeks. Didn't plan on going that day neither. But Clara's voice, 6 years dead and still loud as Sunday bells, wouldn't let me be. You can't look away from suffering, Silas. That's when you stop being human. So I rode. Main Street was a trench carved through white walls. Smoke rose from chimneys like prayers nobody was answering. I tied my horse outside the general store, boots crunching on ice hard enough to crack bone. That's when I saw the sign nailed to Harlow's livery. Vagrant auction. Today. Legal under territorial mandate. Legal. That's what they called it now. I should have turned around. Should have ridden back to my empty cabin and my cold stove and let the world do what it does. But my feet kept moving, drawn by something I couldn't name yet. Inside the barn, maybe 30 men stood stamping their feet against the cold. Breath hung thick as chimney smoke. 4 people on the platform, 3 men who looked like they'd fought the wrong side of something, and 1 girl. She wore a flour sack for a dress, stiff with ice where someone had thrown water on her, rope around her neck instead of chains. In winter, rope was cheaper. It froze solid and did the same job. The auctioneer was a fat man in a fur coat that looked like it cost more than most folks made in a year. Next lot, female, 17. Been sold 3 times already. Won't talk, won't work. Good for kitchen labor if you got patience to train her. Starting bid, $5. Silence. Cold and hard as the ground outside. $4? Nothing. 3? The man in front of me, Jasper Coyle, owned the feed store, spat a stream of tobacco juice into the straw. Ain't worth the feed it'd take to keep her through March. Laughter. Not much, but enough to burn. That's when she looked up. Just for a second. Her eyes found mine across that barn, and I saw it. That white crescent scar on her wrist, peeking out from where the rope had rubbed the flour sack sleeve up. My breath stopped. 8 years ago. A little girl, maybe 10, crying behind her father's leg. Will it leave a mark, Mr. Thornwood? And I'd lied to her. No, sweetheart. You'll be fine. Robert Cartwright's daughter. The auctioneer was already moving on. No bids? Well, she'll go to $30. My voice cut through that barn like an axe through kindling. Every head turned. The auctioneer blinked. Sir? I said $30. You deaf or just surprised someone in this town's got a conscience? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I heard my name whispered. Silent Silas. Ain't been to town since his wife died. What's he want with a girl? The auctioneer's grin came back, wider now, gold tooth catching lamplight. $30, going once, going twice. The gavel cracked like a bone breaking. Sold to the man in back. He shoved her forward. She stumbled, would have fallen if I hadn't caught her. Up close, her face was hollow. Cheekbones sharp enough to cut. Those green eyes looked right through me, empty as abandoned mine shafts. Where are you taking me? Her voice was barely a whisper, rough like she hadn't used it in months. Away from here. Why? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw Robert Cartwright's jaw, his wife Sarah's eyes. The girl I'd failed to save 8 years ago when my father's greed and Crane's lies brought that mine down on top of her family. Because nobody should be bought. Outside, the wind cut like knives. She took 3 steps into the snow and collapsed. I wrapped my canvas coat around her shoulders, not the wolf fur one. I couldn't bear to touch that yet, and picked her up. And she weighed nothing, less than nothing. Across the street, old Marjorie Hess stood on the church steps watching. Our eyes met. She nodded once. As I carried the girl to my horse, Jasper Coyle called after me, voice carrying in the cold air, "You just bought yourself a war, old man." I didn't look back, but he was right. The ride home took 3 hours through snow, chest deep on the horse. 8 miles that felt like 80. I held her in front of me, wrapped in a saddle blanket, her body shaking so hard I thought her bones might crack. She didn't speak, didn't fight, just shivered. The sky was that particular kind of gray that means more snow coming. On the horizon, black clouds were building, the kind that come from the north and don't stop for days. I'd seen storms like that before. They buried cabins, froze livestock where they stood. We had maybe a day before it hit. "You paid for me," she said suddenly, startling me. "I did." Long silence. Just the horses breathing and the crunch of snow. "So now you own me?" "No." She turned her head slightly, trying to see my face. "Then what do you want?" "For you not to freeze to death." A sound that might have been a laugh, bitter and dry as old leather. "Why? I ain't worth saving." I tightened my grip on the reins. "That ain't for you to decide." She didn't respond, but I felt her body relax just a fraction, like a rope that's been pulled taut for so long it forgot what slack felt like. My cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by pine trees bent under the weight of snow. One room, a loft, a stone fireplace I'd built with my own hands back when I thought I'd fill this place with children. The chimney was smoking. I'd banked the coals good before I left. "Inside," I said, helping her down. "There's a fire." She hesitated at the door, looking at the darkness beyond like it might swallow her whole. "What happens after?" I met her eyes. "That's up to you." She stepped inside slow, careful, testing each floorboard like it might give way. The fire was roaring. I'd spent the morning splitting wood, needing something to do with my hands. One chair at the table, one bed against the wall, supplies stacked neat along one side. It wasn't much. Clara used to say it was cozy. After she died, it just felt empty. I poured hot water from the kettle into a basin, set it on the floor near the fire, put a clean cloth beside it. "Your feet. Gotta thaw slow or you'll lose the toes." She stared at the basin like it was a trap. "I'm gonna turn my back," I said. "Give you privacy." I busied myself at the stove, making stew from what I had: beans, salt pork, an onion that was starting to sprout. Behind me, I heard her breathing change. Short, sharp intakes. Thawing hurts worse than freezing. But she didn't make a sound, just like they'd taught her. When the stew was ready, I set 2 bowls on the table, sat down with mine and started eating, showing her it wasn't poisoned. She watched me for a full minute before picking up her spoon. Then she ate like someone who expected the food to be taken away. Finished her bowl in under 2 minutes. I pushed mine across the table. "Finish it." "I already ate today." I hadn't. But she didn't need to know that. "You trying to fatten me up for something?" "I'm trying to keep you alive. That's all." When the sun went down, which happened early this far north in winter, I pointed to the bed. "You take it. I'll sleep in the loft." "What if I run?" "Then you run. But you won't make it a mile in the dark without freezing. If you're gonna go, wait till morning. I'll give you supplies." She looked at me like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. "You'd let me leave?" "You ain't a prisoner. You're a person who needed help." I climbed the ladder to the loft without another word. Through the floorboards, I could hear her moving below. The creak of boards every time she shifted position. She never got in the bed, just sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching the door. Around midnight, I heard her crying. Soft, like she didn't want me to know. Like she'd learned to make even her grief quiet. Some wounds don't show on the skin. When dawn came, I climbed down from the loft to find the bed empty, the door open, and snow blowing in. She was gone. I grabbed the rifle by the door and ran. Her footprints led away from the cabin, small, barefoot, staggering. She hadn't even taken the boots I'd left by the fire. 20 yards out, the prints started weaving. 50 yards, they were barely visible in the fresh snow. At 100 yards, I found her collapsed in a drift. But she wasn't alone. A man stood over her. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a bearskin coat. His back was to me, but I knew that shape. Knew the way he stood with his weight on his left leg, favoring an old injury. I raised the rifle. A step away from her. He turned slow, hands up. Clyde Brennan, town blacksmith. A man I'd known 20 years, but never quite trusted. Easy, Silas. I ain't here to hurt her. Then what the hell are you doing on my land at dawn? Same as you, making sure she don't freeze. I didn't lower the gun. You been following us? He didn't answer directly. Just looked down at the girl. She was unconscious, lips blue, skin like wax. He'd already wrapped his bearskin coat around her. Help me get her back, he said. We can argue after she's breathing right. We carried her between us, my rifle slung over my shoulder, neither of us speaking. Inside, we got her by the fire. Clyde helped me strip off the wet flour sack dress and wrap her in every blanket I owned. Her breathing was shallow, rapid, hypothermia. I'd seen it take men in half an hour. Warm water, Clyde said. Not hot. Slow. We worked in silence, two men who'd lived through enough winters to know death when we saw it stalking. After an hour, her breathing evened out. Color started creeping back into her face. Clyde stood, heading for the door. Why'd you follow her? I asked again. He paused, hand on the doorframe. Because I knew you'd bought her, and I figured she'd run, and I couldn't. He trailed off, staring at something I couldn't see. Just seemed like someone should make sure she didn't die out there. That don't answer my question. It's all the answer you're getting today. He left, and I watched through the window as he disappeared into the trees, following his own tracks back toward town. The next 2 weeks passed in a rhythm neither of us spoke about. She recovered. Started eating without me having to push my bowl toward her. Started walking to the window to watch the snow fall. I taught her to split wood, not because I needed help, but because winter don't care if you're tired, and she needed to know she could do hard things. The first time she split a log clean through, she stared at it like she'd performed a miracle. I did that. You did. A smile. Small, quick, gone in a second, but real. Sundays, young Ethan Harlow came for his reading lessons. 11 years old, skinny as a fence post, parents froze to death in the same blizzard that had trapped me on my claim. His aunt took him in, but she couldn't read, so every week the boy walked 3 miles through snow so I could teach him his letters. The girl, I still didn't know her name, hadn't asked, watched from the corner. When Ethan got stuck on the word family, she leaned over and traced the letters with her finger. Family. Family. Ethan looked up at her. You know how to read? My pa taught me. Before. Before what? Before everything burned. Ethan nodded like this made perfect sense. My folks burned too. In the cold, I mean. Pa said cold burns just like fire, only slower. She looked at the boy and saw something in him. Some mirror of herself. Reached out and fixed his collar. A gesture so tender it made my chest ache. You cold now? A little. She wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. The first time I'd seen her reach toward another person without fear. 3 days later, the horses came. I was outside splitting wood when I heard them. 3 riders, moving slow through the deep snow. I recognized the lead horse before I saw the man. A big gray gelding with a white blaze. Marshall Crane's horse. Inside, the girl heard them too. She appeared at the window, saw Crane, and her face went white as the snow outside. That's him, she whispered to Ethan, who'd stayed the night due to another storm. That's the man who killed my father. Crane dismounted, 2 deputies flanking him, clean-shaven despite the cold, expensive fur coat, gold teeth visible when he smiled. Silas Thornwood. Been a while. I didn't set down the axe. Marshall. Heard you made a purchase at Harlow's auction. I paid for a girl's freedom. That's legal. His smile faded. Depends on the girl, don't it? He pulled a paper from his coat. Got a warrant here. Says that girl's wanted for theft in Helena, $200 worth of mining equipment. Inside, through the window, I saw her shake her head, saw Ethan's small hand take hers. She's been here 3 weeks, I said. Hasn't left my sight. Your warrant's a lie. Careful, Silas. You calling a federal officer a liar? I'm saying your paper's wrong. Crane stepped closer, dropped another document on my chopping block. Older paper, yellowed with age. I recognized it before I even looked. The Mine Safety Report. From 1870, the Cartwright Mine. At the bottom, in handwriting I knew too well, Victor Thornwood, mine foreman, and below it, in younger script, Silas Thornwood, witness. My hands started shaking. That's the safety report from the Cartwright Mine, Crane said, voice low and smooth. Said the supports were sound. 3 days later, collapse. 15 men dead, including Robert Cartwright and his boy. He leaned in close. Your name's on it, Silas, which means you're as guilty as your father was. So unless you want this spread across the territory, unless you want every widow and orphan knowing you signed off on the lie that killed their kin, you'll bring me that girl by tomorrow sundown. He mounted his horse. Tomorrow, sundown, or I come back with 20 men. They rode off, leaving me standing in the snow, staring at a signature I'd made when I was 20 years old and didn't know what the hell I was signing. Inside, the girl was at the door. She'd heard everything. That was him, she said, voice flat. He wants me dead because I saw the reports, the real ones, before they burned the office. What did you see? Proof that the mine wasn't safe, that your father knew, that Crane helped cover it up. She looked at me, and I saw it. The recognition. She knew who I was, knew what my name on that paper meant. He ain't taking you, I said. He'll kill you. Maybe. But he ain't taking you. From the corner, Ethan spoke up, voice small but steady. I can help. We both turned. Marshall don't think kids are listening, the boy said. But I am. I go with my aunt when she cleans his office. I know where he keeps papers, behind the gun rack. That's too dangerous, boy. You taught me to read so I could learn things. This is a thing worth learning. Before I could argue, we heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. Footsteps, circling the cabin, heavy boots crunching through snow. Someone was watching us. And they'd been there the whole time. I grabbed the rifle and stepped outside, Ethan and the girl behind me. The footprints circled the cabin in a wide loop, same large boots I'd seen that morning when I found her in the snow. They led to the tree line and disappeared. Inside, I said. Both of you, bar the door. Silas, the girl started. Now. I followed the tracks into the pines. The snow was deeper here, untouched except for this one path. Whoever made these prints knew how to move quiet, knew how to watch without being seen. 20 yards in, the tracks stopped at a thick spruce. Behind it, fresh boot marks where someone had stood for a long time. From here, they'd have a clear view of my cabin, of everyone coming and going. A broken branch, still fresh, sap sticky on the bark. Whoever it was had been here within the hour. I turned back, scanning the woods. Nothing moved except snow falling from overladen branches. But I felt it, that crawling sensation on the back of your neck when you know you're being hunted. That night, none of us slept much. I sat by the fire cleaning the rifle. The girl, Birdie, Ethan had called her, and she hadn't corrected him, sat at the table with her tin locket open, staring at whatever was inside. The boy sprawled on the floor by the fire, pretending to sleep but watching everything through half-closed eyes. Around midnight, there was a knock at the door, not the aggressive pounding from before, just 3 soft taps. I raised the rifle. Who's there? Clyde Brennan, and I got something you need to see. I cracked the door open, rifle barrel first. Clyde stood there alone, no horse, snowflakes collecting on his shoulders. He held something in his hands, a photograph in a cracked frame. Let me in, Silas. I'm freezing my ass off, and we need to talk. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He stepped inside, stomping snow from his boots. When he looked up and saw Bertie at the table, something in his face changed, went soft in a way I'd never seen from Clyde Brennan. "Hello, Bertie girl," he said, voice rough with something that might have been grief. She stared at him. "How do you know my name?" He set the photograph on the table. "Because I knew your mother. Sarah Brennan was my half-sister." The room went silent except for the fire's crackle. Bertie picked up the photograph with shaking hands. A young woman, maybe 20, standing in front of a cabin. She wore a simple dress and a tin locket, the same locket Bertie wore now. The resemblance was unmistakable. Same eyes, same mouth, same way of holding her head, slightly tilted, like she was listening to something the rest of the world couldn't hear. "This is..." Bertie's voice cracked. "This is Ma. Taken 3 months before she married Robert Cartwright, 1856. Clyde pulled out a chair, sat down heavy like the weight of 20 years had just landed on his shoulders. "I left home before you were born. Had a fight with my pa about, hell, don't even remember now. Something stupid. Told myself I'd come back when I made something of myself." He looked at his calloused hands. "Never did make much of nothing, and by the time I worked up the courage to go home, I heard about the mine collapse. Heard the Cartwrights were dead. All of them." "Not all of them," Bertie whispered. "No, not all." He looked at her, and I saw tears in his eyes. The first time I'd ever seen Clyde Brennan cry. "I've been looking for you for 8 years. Every auction, every workhouse, every place folks sell people they don't want to see as human. When I heard about Harlow's auction, I came. And when I saw you on that platform..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Bertie. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I left." "Sorry for all of it." Bertie stared at him, then at the photograph, then back at him. "You're the footprints," she said. "You've been watching the cabin." He nodded. "Making sure Crane's men don't try nothing at night. I know you don't remember me. You were just a baby when I left. But I remember holding you. Remember your ma singing you to sleep. And I ain't leaving again. Not this time." Ethan spoke up from his spot by the fire. "So you're her uncle?" "I am." "Good," the boy said, matter of fact. "We're gonna need help. Crane's coming back tomorrow." We sat around that table until dawn, making plans. Clyde knew things about Crane I didn't. About the bribes, about the mining company connections, about the web of corruption that went all the way to Helena. Ethan drew a map of Crane's office from memory, showing us where papers were kept. And Bertie, quiet, damaged Bertie who'd barely spoken in weeks, started to talk. "I worked in the mine office," she said, voice stronger now, like finding family had given her back some piece of herself. "I was just a girl. 14. They had me filing papers, making coffee. Nobody paid attention to me. I was just the Cartwright girl, orphaned, working for scraps." She traced patterns on the table with her finger. "One day, I was filing and I saw it. 2 sets of safety reports for the same mine. One said the supports were failing, dangerous, needed immediate repair. The other, the one they submitted, said everything was sound. My pa's signature was forged on the false report." "Who signed the real one?" I asked. "Your father and Marshal Crane when he was still just a territorial deputy. They knew that mine was going to collapse, and they sent men down there anyway because the company paid them to get one more season of ore out before they had to shut it down." Her hands were shaking now. I took the real report, hid it in my dress. That night, Crane's men came, burned the office, burned our house. My ma was inside. I ran, been running ever since. "Where's the report now?" Clyde asked. "Gone. They caught me the first time I was sold. Took everything. Beat me until I told them I'd hidden it in the mine office before it burned. They believed me because it was the only thing that made sense." "So there's no proof," I said. "No proof except me. And I'm not exactly what you'd call a credible witness." She touched her throat. "Got these scars from screaming. They locked me in a shed during the last blizzard. No coat, no blanket. Screamed until my voice broke. Haven't been able to talk right since." Ethan sat up. "But Crane don't know the report's gone. That's why he wants her dead. He thinks she still has it, or knows where it is." "Smart boy," Clyde said. Which means we got leverage. If Crane thinks the report might surface, he'll make mistakes. Or he'll kill us all, Bertie said flatly. There's another option. Clyde looked at me. Marjorie Hess. Her husband was a territorial judge before he died. She keeps records. Church basements full of old legal documents, marriage certificates, land deeds. If there's any law that can protect Bertie, Marjorie'll know it. I remembered her nod on the church steps, the way she'd witnessed without looking away. We need to get to town, I said. Talk to Marjorie before Crane comes back tomorrow. Can't, Clyde said, looking out the window. Storm's here. I followed his gaze. The black clouds I'd seen on the horizon 3 days ago had arrived. Snow was already falling thick and fast. Within an hour, visibility would be zero. Within 12 hours, the roads would be impassable. How long? Bertie asked. 3 days, Clyde said. Maybe more. We're trapped here until it blows over. Ethan looked worried. My aunt's gonna be scared. She'll think I froze. Can't be helped, I said. Nobody's going anywhere in this. The wind picked up, howling around the cabin like something alive and angry. The walls creaked under the pressure. I added more wood to the fire. 3 days, Bertie said quietly. Trapped in here together. Reckon it's time we all got honest with each other then, Clyde said. He looked at me. You want to tell her, or should I? I knew what he meant. The thing I'd been avoiding since I saw that scar on her wrist. I knew your father, I said to Bertie. I was 20 years old, working at the mine. My pa was the foreman. He asked me to witness his signature on some papers. I didn't know what they were, didn't ask, just did what he told me because that's what you did back then when your pa told you to do something. I met her eyes. 3 days after I signed, the mine collapsed. When I realized what I'd done, what my name on that paper meant, I rode to your farm to warn your ma, to tell her what my father had done. But Crane's men got there first. I saw the smoke from 2 miles away. By the time I got there, I stopped. Even after 8 years, the memory burned. Everyone was gone, I finished. House burned to ash. Your ma inside. Your pa and brother already dead in the mine. And you. They told me you'd died too. Told me the whole family was gone. Bertie's face was unreadable. So when you saw me on that platform, I saw a chance. Maybe my only chance. To do what I should have done 8 years ago. You think $30 pays for my father's life? No, I don't. But it's all I got. The wind screamed. Snow piled against the windows. And for a long time, nobody spoke. Finally, Bertie stood, walked to the window, pressed her hand against the cold glass. I should hate you, she said. I know. I should hate that your name is on that paper, that your father's greed killed mine. I know. She turned to face me. But I'm tired of hating, tired of being afraid, tired of running. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna survive this storm. Then we're gonna go to town, gonna talk to Marjorie, gonna find some way to make Crane answer for what he did. She looked at Clyde, then at Ethan, then at me. And when it's done, when it's finally done, I'm gonna decide if I can forgive you, but not before. Outside, the blizzard hit full force, the kind that buries cabins and freezes livestock where they stand, the kind that forces people to face truths they'd buried deeper than snow. We were trapped. 4 people who barely knew each other, bound by grief and guilt and a slim thread of hope. And somewhere in town, Marshall Crane was waiting for tomorrow to come. But tomorrow was 3 days away now. And a lot can change in 3 days when you got nowhere to run. The first day of the storm, we didn't talk much, just survived, fed the fire, rationed food, listened to the wind try to tear the roof off. The second day, Clyde told stories about Sarah, Bertie's ma, how she used to sing while she worked, how she could make a meal out of nothing and somehow make it taste like Sunday dinner, how she'd wanted to name her daughter Beatrice because it meant she who brings happiness. But everyone called her Bertie because even as a baby, she'd wake up singing. Bertie cried when he told that story. First tears I'd seen from her. Not quiet tears either. Full, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep she'd kept locked away. Clyde held her while she cried, and Ethan sat close, his small hand on her arm. I stayed by the fire, giving them space, but feeling something shift in that cabin, like ice breaking on a river in spring, that sound of things starting to thaw. The third day, I was carving something at the table when Bertie finally asked, "What are you making?" I held up the wooden beam, 2 feet long, smooth pine. Something that should have been made a long time ago. I turned it so she could see what I'd carved. Robert Cartwright, 1832, 1870. Oswin Cartwright, 1858 to 1870. Her brother's name, her father's name, carved deep so they wouldn't fade. Bertie stared at it, fingers reaching out, tracing the letters. "I was gonna mount it above the door," I said, "so their names are the first thing anyone sees when they walk in. So they're remembered." She was crying again, but different now, quieter, like something inside her was healing instead of breaking. Can I, can I add my ma?" I handed her the knife. Her hands shook as she carved. Clyde guided her, showed her how to cut with the grain. Ethan held the lamp close so she could see. And together, in that storm-locked cabin, we added Sarah Cartwright, 1834 to 1870. 3 names, 3 people who should still be alive. 3 ghosts we'd carry until we couldn't carry them anymore. When it was done, Bertie set down the knife. "Thank you. Ain't me you should thank. They were your family." "No." She looked around the cabin, at Clyde, at Ethan, at me. "I mean thank you for this, for all of it, for not leaving me to freeze." The storm broke on the 4th morning. We woke to silence, that particular quiet that comes after days of wind, the kind that makes your ears ring. Clyde was first out the door. "Road'll be clear by tomorrow. We can make town by afternoon if we leave at dawn." "We'll need to talk to Marjorie first thing," I said, "before Crane knows we're back." "About that," Clyde pulled a folded paper from inside his coat. "Found this in my pa's things after he died. Never knew what to do with it, but after what Bertie told us," he handed it to me. Old paper, official seal at the top. I read it twice to make sure I understood. Montana Territorial Adoption Statute, 1864. Any man who provides shelter, sustenance, and protection to an orphan through 1 full winter season shall be recognized as legal guardian, with all attendant rights and responsibilities therein. "What's it mean?" Bertie asked. I looked at her. "Means you've been under my roof for 3 weeks. Fed, clothed, protected. Under territorial law, that makes you my ward, legal dependent. So Crane can't arrest me?" "Not without going through me first. And even then, he'd need to prove you committed a crime before I took guardianship, which he can't, because his warrant's dated 2 months ago, and you've been here 3 weeks." For the first time since I'd bought her, I saw hope in her eyes. Real hope. "Does that mean I'm safe?" "If Marjorie can confirm this law still stands, and if she's got the paperwork to prove it," I started. Clyde interrupted. "Marjorie's got everything. Woman's got half the territory's legal history in that church basement. If this law's still good, she'll have the documents." Ethan grinned. "So we got him. We got Crane." "Maybe," I said, not wanting to promise too much. "But we still gotta get to town, still gotta convince Marjorie, still gotta—" Bertie grabbed my arm. "Look." She was pointing out the window, toward town. 8 miles away, barely visible in the morning light. Smoke, rising black against the white sky. Not chimney smoke. Too much of it. Too dark. Something was burning. I grabbed the spyglass from the shelf, focused on the smoke. My timber office. The small building where I kept my contracts, my records, everything I needed to prove ownership of my claims. It was gone. Just smoke and ash. Clyde swore. "Crane. He's sending a message," I said, voice hollow. "Give him the girl, or lose everything." Bertie's face had gone pale. "It's my fault. All of this is my fault." "No." I turned to face her. "This is Crane's fault, and my father's fault, and every man who chose money over lives, but it ain't yours." But the damage was done. Without those records, I couldn't prove ownership of my timber claims, couldn't prove I had the income to support a ward, Couldn't prove anything. We go to town anyway, Clyde said. Marjorie's our only chance now. Through the window, the smoke kept rising. And I knew in my bones, that this was just the beginning. Crane wasn't waiting for us to come to him. He was coming for us. We were halfway to town when they found us, 3 riders coming fast through the snow. I recognized the horses before I saw the men, Crane's deputies. The marshal himself rode in the center, that expensive fur coat making him look like some kind of winter king. Keep riding, I told the others. Don't stop. But Crane cut us off, his horse blocking the narrow path. The deputies fanned out on either side. Silas Thornwood. Crane's voice was smooth as oil on water. Running away? Going to town. That ain't illegal. Depends on who you're bringing with you. His eyes found Bertie. That girl's wanted. I showed you the warrant. And I told you your warrant's wrong. Crane smiled, showing those gold teeth. Well then, guess we'll let a judge decide. He nodded to his deputies. Arrest him. What charge? Clyde demanded. Harboring a fugitive, obstruction of federal law, conspiracy to conceal evidence. Crane pulled out shackles, iron, heavy, meant to shame. And the girl comes with us. No! Bertie tried to move her horse between us. One of the deputies grabbed her reins. Easy now. Ethan's voice was high and scared. You can't do this. But they could. They did. They pulled me off my horse, slapped those shackles on my wrists. Cold iron, tight enough to cut. Crane made sure everyone on the road could see. Made sure it hurt. People need to remember, he said, close to my ear, what happens when you defy federal law. People need to remember what you did, I shot back. To the Cartwrights, to all of them. His face darkened. Careful, old man. You're in enough trouble. They tied my horse to his and started walking me toward town. Made me walk. In the snow. In the cold. Chains rattling with every step. Behind me I heard Bertie screaming. Heard Clyde trying to calm her. Heard Ethan crying. Stay with Clyde, I shouted back. Get to Marjorie. Find that document. A deputy hit me in the back with a rifle butt. I went down hard, face in the snow. Tasted blood. No more talking, Crane said. They dragged me through Main Street at noon when everyone was out. Made a show of it. Marshal Crane's voice carried in the cold air. This is what happens to those who harbor criminals. This is what happens to those who obstruct federal law. I kept my head up. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. But I saw the faces in the crowd. Some looked away in shame. Others whispered behind their hands. A few, Jasper Coyle among them, smiled like they'd won something. Only one person didn't look away. Marjorie Hess stood on the church steps, watching everything. Her face was grave, but when our eyes met, she nodded. Once, like a promise. The jail was a small stone building with 3 cells. They threw me in the middle one. Dirt floor, single candle, rats in the corners, no blanket, no fire, just cold seeping up from the ground and through the walls. Crane stood outside the bars. Tomorrow morning, trial on the church steps. Whole town's gonna watch you fall. For what? Helping someone? For conspiracy, for obstruction, for having your name on that mine report. He leaned close. I've got witnesses who'll say you knew that mine was dangerous, that you helped your father cover it up. By the time I'm done, you'll hang for 15 murders. That's a lie. That's testimony. He smiled. And who's gonna believe you? An old hermit who bought a girl at auction, or a federal marshal with signed statements? He walked away, boots echoing on stone. I sat down on the frozen dirt. The candle flickered in a draft. Somewhere in the dark, rats skittered. I could see my breath in the thin light. This was it. The price for $30. The price for trying to fix 8 years of guilt with one impulsive choice. Around midnight, someone came to the cell. Not a deputy. A young man, maybe 25. I recognized him. Marcus Boyle. His father had died in the mine collapse. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then pushed a tin cup of water and a piece of bread through the bars. My pa died that day, he said quietly. Crane said it was an accident. Said the supports just gave way, but I heard talk about forged reports. He met my eyes. I ain't brave like you, but I ain't gonna let you starve neither. He left before I could respond. I drank the water slow, made the bread last, and I thought about what Clyde had told me once, years ago, when Clara died and I wanted to die with her. Honor ain't land, Silas, ain't property. It's how you stand after you fall. I'd fallen, but I was still standing. At dawn, they nailed a notice to my cell door, trial at sunrise. Silas Thornwood. Charges, harboring fugitive, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to murder. Tomorrow, they'd try to destroy me, but tomorrow, Bertie would be free. And if that's what $30 bought, then it was worth every cent, even if it cost me everything. Dawn came cold and gray. They pulled me from the cell before the sun cleared the mountains, chains still on my wrists. My clothes were stiff with cold and dirt. I hadn't slept, couldn't, knowing what was coming. The church steps had been transformed into a makeshift courtroom. A table for Crane, a chair for me, rough wood, no back, meant to make me uncomfortable, and behind it all, the town. More than 100 people gathered despite the cold, some curious, some hungry for justice, some just wanting to see a man fall. I searched the crowd for Bertie, found her near the back with Clyde's hand on her shoulder, keeping her steady. Ethan stood beside them, face pale but determined. When our eyes met, Bertie pressed her hand to her chest, over her heart, a promise or a prayer, I couldn't tell which. Crane stood at the table in his fine coat, looking every inch the federal authority. He had papers spread out before him, official seals catching the morning light. This wasn't just a trial, it was theater. People of Broken Ridge, he began, voice carrying across the square. We're gathered here to witness justice, to see what happens when a man places his own desires above the law of this territory. He gestured to me. Silas Thornwood stands accused of harboring a known fugitive, of obstructing a federal investigation, and of conspiracy to conceal evidence in the deaths of 15 minors 8 years ago. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I heard my name whispered, heard Cartwright mine, and knew all along, and just like his father. Let's hear the charges proper, Crane continued. On January 15th of this year, the defendant purchased one Beatrice Cartwright at a legal vagrant auction. Said girl is wanted in Helena for theft of mining equipment valued at $200. When presented with a federal warrant for her arrest, Mr. Thornwood refused to comply. He has kept her hidden on his property for 3 weeks in direct violation of territorial law. That ain't how it happened, I said. You'll have your turn. Crane didn't even look at me. Furthermore, evidence has come to light connecting Mr. Thornwood to the Cartwright mine disaster of 1870, a disaster that claimed 15 lives and left a dozen families without fathers, brothers, and sons. He held up the mine report, the one with my signature. This document, signed by the defendant, declared the mine structurally sound just 3 days before the collapse. A collapse that subsequent investigation revealed was caused by, and I quote, criminally negligent assessment of support beam integrity. Crane's voice rose. 15 men are dead because someone lied about that mine being safe, and Silas Thornwood's signature is on that lie. The crowd's murmur grew louder, angrier. I saw Marcus Boyle in the second row, fists clenched. Saw other sons and widows of the dead miners, faces hard with old grief. I was 20 years old, I said, loud enough to be heard. My father asked me to witness his signature. I didn't know what the papers said. Didn't know. Ignorance isn't innocence. Crane slammed his hand on the table. Yes, you signed. Your name is there in ink. And now, 8 years later, you harbor the one witness who could expose the full truth of that day? He turned to the crowd, playing them like a fiddle. Convenient, isn't it? The girl who saw the real reports just happens to end up in his cabin, where no one can question her, where she can't testify to what really happened. She can testify right now, I shouted. Let her speak. Let her tell what she saw. The testimony of a known criminal? Crane laughed. A girl wanted for theft, who ran from 3 different owners, who has every reason to lie to save herself. He shook his head. No. We'll hear from credible witnesses first. My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming. Dr. Ephraim Walsh, Crane called. The town doctor stepped forward, hat in his hands. A good man. I'd known him 15 years. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Doctor, you treated the girl, Beatrice Cartwright, at Mr. Thornwood's request, correct? Yes, sir. Did she appear to be held against her will? Well, no, sir. She was calm, cooperative. So she was free to leave if she chose? The doctor hesitated. I suppose. Yes or no, doctor? Yes. She appeared free to leave. Crane smiled. So they were living together voluntarily, a 54-year-old man and a 17-year-old girl. And you saw nothing wrong with this arrangement? I didn't say that. Thank you, doctor. You may step back. Next came the auctioneer, fat man, still wearing that fur coat. He confirmed I'd paid $30. Confirmed I'd asked no questions about the girl's background. Made it sound suspicious. Made it sound wrong. A man doesn't pay $30 without wanting something, Crane said, and Mr. Thornwood wanted this particular girl, the one person who could implicate him in the mine disaster, the one witness he needed to silence. That's a damn lie. I stood, chains rattling. The crowd gasped. Restrain the prisoner, Crane ordered. A deputy grabbed my shoulder, forced me back into the chair. The wood dug into my back. My wrists ached from the iron. One more outburst and you'll be gagged, Crane said. Then, softer, almost kind. Mr. Thornwood, I'm trying to give you a chance to explain yourself. But you're not making this easy. He was good, made himself sound reasonable, made me look like the criminal. Now, Crane continued, our final witness. Someone who worked closely with both the defendant and his father. Someone who saw things she wishes she hadn't. My blood went cold. Mrs. Edith Harlow. No, not Edith. Not Ethan's aunt. She came forward slowly, a thin woman in a worn dress, hands shaking. She wouldn't look at anyone. Not at me, not at Ethan, who'd gone white as snow in the crowd, not at Crane. Mrs. Harlow, Crane said gently. You worked as a cleaning woman at the mine office in 1870, is that correct? Yes, sir. Her voice was barely audible. And during that time, did you ever see Silas Thornwood meet with his father regarding mine operations? She was silent for a long moment. I willed her to look at me, to remember that I'd taught her nephew to read, that I'd never turned them away when they needed firewood or food. Mrs. Harlow? Crane prompted. Please answer the question. Yes, I saw them meet. And what did they discuss? Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice shook. I heard them talking about the reports, about the mine being unsafe. The crowd erupted. Voices rose in anger, in shock. Someone shouted, "Murderer!" Someone else threw a stone that clattered against the church steps near my feet. Order, Crane called. Let her finish. Edith was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I heard Mr. Victor Thornwood say the mine wasn't safe. And I heard Silas say they couldn't tell the company, that they'd shut it down and everyone would lose work. It wasn't true. None of it was true. But I saw it in her eyes, the terror. Crane had something on her, some threat that made her lie to save herself. In the crowd, Ethan was shaking his head, tears streaming. He knew, the boy knew his aunt was lying. So Silas Thornwood knew the mine was dangerous, Crane said, knew men would die, and chose profit over lives. I started. Silence. Crane's voice cracked like a whip. You've heard the testimony. You've seen the evidence. Silas Thornwood stands guilty of conspiracy in the deaths of 15 men, guilty of harboring a fugitive, guilty of obstructing federal law. He looked at me, and his smile was cold. And the sentence for conspiracy to murder is death by hanging. The crowd's noise was deafening now, some cheering, some protesting. I couldn't tell which was louder. I looked at Bertie. She was crying, one hand pressed to her mouth. Clyde held her back. I could see she wanted to run forward, but he wouldn't let her. Ethan broke free from his aunt, ran toward me. He's lying. My aunt's lying. I know where the real evidence is. A deputy caught him, lifted him off his feet. The boy fought like a wildcat, screaming, "Let me talk! Let me tell them!" Get that child out of here, Crane ordered. They dragged Ethan away, still fighting, still screaming. His aunt stood frozen, watching her nephew being removed, tears streaming down her face. She'd sacrificed him to save herself. Or maybe Crane had threatened him, threatened to harm the boy if she didn't testify. Either way, she'd made her choice. "Take the prisoner to his cell," Crane said. "Execution at dawn tomorrow." They pulled me to my feet. As they led me away, I saw Marjorie Hess. She stood apart from the crowd, a leather satchel in her hands. When our eyes met, she mouthed two words. "I know." Know what? The adoption law? Something else? But there was no time to ask. They were dragging me back to that cold cell, back to the dirt and the rats and the dying candle. In the cell, they left me with the chains on. My wrists were bleeding now, iron rubbing skin raw. Through the small window, I could see them building the gallows in the town square. Hear the hammer strikes. Watch them test the rope. 13 steps up to the platform. Thick hemp rope. Trapdoor built solid. They were taking their time, making sure everyone could watch. Around sunset, Bertie came to the bars. The deputy let her approach, maybe because he felt sorry for her, maybe because Crane wanted her to see what happened to those who tried to help her. She pressed her hands against the bars. I reached through, our fingers barely touching. "This is my fault," she whispered. "No. If I'd never come here, then you'd be dead. And I'd still be sitting alone in my cabin, too scared to live because I was too ashamed to face what my father did." I squeezed her fingers. "You gave me a reason to stand up. That's worth more than any property Crane can burn." "But they're going to kill you." "Maybe. But you're going to live. That's what matters." Her tears fell on my hands. "I don't know how to live without you. Any of you. Clyde, Ethan, you. You're the only family I got. Then you fight. You survive. And you remember us." A shadow fell across the cell. Marshal Crane stood there, watching us with those cold eyes. "Touching," he said. "But visiting hours are over." Bertie didn't move. "I have the report." Crane went still. "What?" "The real mine report. The one that shows your signature. Shows you knew. Shows you were paid to let men die." She reached into her dress, pulled out a folded paper. "I hid it. Been carrying it all these years. And tomorrow, I'm taking it to the territorial governor." For the first time, I saw fear in Crane's face. Real fear. Then he laughed. "That's a good bluff, girl. But we both know you don't have it. We searched you, took everything. You took the copy I wanted you to find." Bertie's voice was steady now, strong. "The real one's been in Marjorie Hess's church basement for 8 years. I sent it to her before they burned the office. Addressed it to St. Catherine's Historical Records. Nobody looks at church mail." She smiled, and it was sharp as a knife. "And tomorrow morning, before they hang him, Marjorie's reading it to the whole town. Every word, every signature, every dollar amount." Crane's hand moved toward his gun. "I wouldn't." Clyde's voice came from behind him. The blacksmith stood there with 3 other men, Marcus Boyle and 2 others whose fathers had died in the mine. "You draw that gun, you'll have to explain to the whole town why you shot an unarmed girl." Crane's hand froze, his face went red, then white. "This isn't over." "No," Bertie agreed. "It's not. But tomorrow, truth comes out, one way or another." They walked away, leaving Crane standing in the shadows. And for the first time since they'd locked me in this cell, I felt something like hope. But hope's a dangerous thing when you're scheduled to hang at dawn. They came for me an hour before dawn. Not Crane's deputies. Marjorie Hess moving faster than I'd ever seen a 62-year-old woman move, with Bertie, Clyde, and a recovered Ethan behind her. The deputy on duty stood aside without a word, keys already in his hand. "We don't have much time," Marjorie said, unlocking my cell. "Crane's gathering men. He knows what's coming." "The report?" I asked. She patted the leather satchel. "Got it. Plus the 1864 adoption statute. Plus 3 affidavits from miners who survived the collapse. Plus a letter from the mining company offering Crane $500 to approve the mine despite known structural failures." "How'd you get all that?" Child, I've been keeping records in that church basement for 40 years. People tell priests and judges things they don't tell anyone else. And when those priests and judges die, their papers come to me. She smiled, sharp and knowing. I've been waiting 8 years for someone brave enough to stand up to Crane. You just gave me the excuse I needed. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Dawn wasn't far off. We moved fast through the empty streets. The town was still asleep, but that wouldn't last. Crane would have men watching, would know the moment we made our move. At the church, Marjorie spread the documents across the steps like laying out cards in a winning hand. The mine report, the real one, yellowed with age but signatures clear as the day they were written, the adoption statute, the affidavits, the bribe letter. "Ring the bells," she told Clyde. He ran inside. A moment later, the church bells started pealing. Loud, insistent, the sound that meant emergency, that meant everyone needed to come now. People emerged from houses, pulling on coats, confused. More and more, until the square was filling. 100 people, 200. The whole town turning out because when the church bells rang like that, you came. Crane appeared from the hotel, still buttoning his coat, deputies scrambling behind him. When he saw us on the church steps, saw the documents, his face went dark. "What is this?" he demanded. "This," Marjorie said, voice carrying across the square, "is the truth you've been burying for 8 years." She held up the mine report. In the growing light, I could see her hands were steady. No fear. Just righteous anger that had been building for nearly a decade. On December 12, 1869, Victor Thornwood conducted a safety inspection of the Cartwright mine. This report, stated clearly that the main support beams were rotting and the mine should be closed immediately. She looked at the crowd. 3 days later, a second report was filed. This one said the mine was perfectly safe. That same day, the Broken Ridge Mining Company paid Marshal Elwood Crane, then a territorial deputy, $500. She held up the letter. "I have the receipt, signed by Crane himself." The crowd's murmur turned ugly. Heads turned toward Crane. He stood frozen, hand on his gun but unable to draw. Too many witnesses. On January 3, 1870, Marjorie continued, the Cartwright mine collapsed. 15 men died, including Robert Cartwright, who had been asking questions about why the mine was still operating. His family's farm burned that same night. His widow died in the fire. While the official report called it an accident, she looked at Crane. "But we both know it wasn't." "That's enough," Crane's voice cracked. "This is slander. That girl is a criminal. She forged those documents." "These documents have been in my possession for 8 years," Marjorie said calmly, "sealed and witnessed. Beatrice Cartwright sent them to me before the mine office burned, knowing someone would try to destroy the evidence." Bertie stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice was clearer than I'd ever heard it, stronger. "I worked in that office. I saw the reports, saw the bribe, saw Marshal Crane threaten my father when he started asking questions. And when I tried to tell someone, Crane's men came for my family." She pulled open her collar, showing the scars on her throat. "These are from screaming, from being locked in a shed during a blizzard because I knew too much. I've been sold 3 times, beaten, starved, and nearly frozen to death. All to keep Crane's secret." She looked at the crowd, meeting their eyes one by one. "But I ain't silent anymore." Marcus Boyle stepped forward from the crowd. "My father died in that mine. You told me it was an accident, Marshal. You told me it was just bad luck." Another man stepped forward. "My brother." A woman. "My husband." One by one, families of the dead moved toward the church steps, not threatening, just standing, bearing witness. "Furthermore," Marjorie said, pulling out the adoption statute, "under the Montana Territorial Adoption Statute of 1864, any man who provides shelter, sustenance, and protection to an orphan through one full winter season becomes legal guardian. Silas Thornwood has kept Beatrice Cartwright safe for 11 weeks. Under territorial law, she is his ward. Your warrant is void, Marshal Crane. You have no jurisdiction over a man's legal dependent." Crane's face had gone from red to white. "This is... You can't." "I can." "And I have." Marjorie's voice was iron. The territorial governor will receive copies of all these documents by week's end, along with a formal request for your removal and arrest on charges of bribery, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. You'll all pay for this, Crane hissed. Every one of you. No, I said, stepping forward. We're done paying. Been paying for 8 years. Paying with guilt and shame and silence. That debt's settled now. Crane's hand moved toward his gun. I wouldn't, Clyde said again, and this time 20 men stood with him. Sons and brothers of the dead. Men who'd been afraid for years but weren't afraid anymore. Crane looked at them, looked at the documents, looked at the crowd that had turned against him, and ran. Crane made it maybe 50 yards before the second blizzard hit. We'd all seen it coming. That black wall of clouds moving in from the north, the kind that don't give warning, just arrive. One moment the sky was gray dawn. The next, the wind was screaming and snow was falling so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Let him go, I shouted over the wind. Storm'll get him. But Crane had already mounted his horse, was kicking it hard toward the tree line. He looked back once, saw the crowd watching, and his face was twisted with rage and fear. He didn't see the snowdrift. The horse's front leg plunged through the crust of ice, broke through to nothing beneath. The animal screamed, went down hard. Crane was thrown, landed with a crack I heard even over the wind. By the time we reached him, he was trying to crawl. His leg was bent wrong, bone showing through the torn pants. Blood on the snow, already freezing. Help me, he gasped. Please, I'll freeze. The crowd formed a circle around him. Nobody moved, just watched. The same way they'd watched me get dragged through town in chains. The same way they'd stood silent while innocent people suffered. Marcus Boyle spoke first. Like my pa froze in that mine, in the dark, calling for help that never came? A woman. Like my husband froze, waiting for rescue you never sent? The wind howled. The temperature was dropping fast. In this storm, exposed like this, Crane had maybe an hour before hypothermia took him. Justice, some might call it. The kind that doesn't need rope or guns, just winter and time. I looked at Bertie. She was staring down at Crane, face unreadable. This was her moment, her choice. The man who'd killed her family, who'd hunted her for years, was helpless at her feet. She knelt down in the snow, looked him in the eyes. My pa taught me something, she said, voice steady despite the wind. He said a man who survives winter by his own strength is free. But a man who survives because someone chose mercy owes a debt he can never repay. She looked at Clyde, then at me. Bring him to the church. What? Crane's eyes went wide. No, you can't. I can let you freeze, Bertie said. That's justice. Or I can let you live knowing we chose different than you did. That's mercy. She stood. And I'm choosing mercy, not for you, for me, because I'm done letting hate decide who I am. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some protesting, some nodding, some crying. Clyde and Marcus lifted Crane between them, started carrying him toward the church. The storm was full force now, visibility dropping to nothing. Everyone ran for shelter. The church basement, the only place big enough to hold them all. We spent 6 days in that basement, 40 people pressed together, one potbelly stove, food running low. Crane was kept in the coal room, his legs splinted, door locked. Every day someone brought him food and water. Every day he cursed us, called us fools, told us we'd regret it. But something happened in those 6 days. Families who'd stopped speaking to each other started talking. Widows of the mine disaster finally heard what really happened. Children learned the truth their parents had been too afraid to tell. And Bertie, she sat with those children, teaching them songs her mother had taught her. Watching her with them, seeing the way she smiled when they laughed, I understood. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. On the 7th day, the storm broke. We emerged into blinding sunlight on fresh snow. The world looked new, clean. A federal marshal was waiting in the town square, having arrived during the night. Real federal authority, not Crane's kind. He had a warrant, a real one this time. They loaded Crane into a wagon. As it started to roll, Crane looked back at Bertie. "You should have let me freeze." "I know," she said. The wagon disappeared down the road, and for the first time in 8 years, the weight lifted. From her shoulders, from mine, from the whole town. Marjorie put a hand on my arm. "You did good, Silas." "We all did." "No." She looked at Bertie, at Ethan, at Clyde. "You started it. You saw someone who needed help and you didn't look away. That's what heroes do." "I ain't no hero. Just a man trying to fix an old mistake." "That's exactly what a hero is," she said. 6 weeks later, spring came. We walked up to my cabin together, me, Bertie, Ethan, and Clyde. The snow was melting in patches, mud everywhere, green shoots pushing through the earth, the world waking up. Inside, gifts covered the table: flour, seed packets, a new quilt, and a wooden sign: "The Thornwood Cartwright Home." "Who made this?" Bertie asked. "Town," I said. "Reckon they're saying you're welcome." We planted a garden that afternoon, all four of us working the soil: beans, carrots, potatoes. In the center, Bertie planted seeds she'd been carrying since before the fire, her mother's wildflower seeds. "For beauty," I said. "Not just survival." "Both matter," she said. Ethan was helping her cover the seeds when he stopped. "Mr. Thornwood?" "Yeah, boy? Can I, can I call you Pa?" My throat closed up. Couldn't speak for a moment. When I found my voice, it was rough. "I'd be honored." He looked at Bertie. "And, Ma?" She pulled him close, tears streaming down her face. "Yeah, you can call me that." We finished planting as the sun set. Above the door, we mounted the carved beam, 3 names of the dead, and below, freshly carved: Silas, Bertie, Ethan, Clyde family by choice, 1878. That night, we sat on the porch watching the stars come out. 4 people who'd found each other in the cold and decided to be family. "You think they'd be proud?" Bertie asked quietly. "My folks?" "I think they'd be grateful," I said. "That you survived. That you chose to live instead of just survive." She took my hand, took Ethan's, reached across for Clyde's. We sat there connected, breathing the same air, warm despite the lingering chill. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt like I'd finally done something right. I'm an old man now. Bertie and Ethan are grown, with families of their own. Clyde passed 5 winters back, buried him next to Clara like he asked. And sometimes when the snow comes, I sit on this porch and remember. Remember the winter of '78. The winter they sold people in the back of Harlow's livery. The winter I paid $30 for a stranger and found a family. People ask me sometimes, was it worth it? Losing my timber office, spending a night in jail, nearly hanging for conspiracy? And I tell them the same thing every time. A life ain't worth what you pay for it. It's worth what you're willing to give to keep it alive. I gave $30 and 3 weeks of firewood and a roof that leaked when the snow got heavy. Gave her my time and my protection and eventually my name. And in return, she gave me a reason to wake up in the morning, gave me a daughter, a grandson, a family I'd stopped believing I deserved. Some folks measure wealth in land and gold. I measure mine in the names carved above my door. The dead we honor, the living we choose, the family we build from broken pieces. That winter taught me something. Mercy ain't weakness. It's the hardest kind of strength there is. Standing between someone and their destruction, knowing it might destroy you too, and doing it anyway because it's right. Bertie could have let Crane freeze. Would have been justice. But she chose different. Chose to be better than what was done to her. That's courage. That's character. That's the kind of person you want to build a family with. So if this story touched you, if it made you think about the choices you've made or the ones you got coming, I want you to do something. Tell me where you're listening from. And tell me, who's the person you'd walk through a blizzard for? Because family ain't blood. It's who you'd risk the cold to keep warm. Till next time, may your dignity carry you through.